Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. For those of you who are watching Let's Humanize for the first time, my name is Vivian Acquah. I'm the proud host of Let's Humanize the Workplace, and I've been doing that since 2019. And you might be wondering, who am I, right? So I'm Vivian Acquah, born and raised in the Netherlands. I'm currently residing in Amsterdam, the Netherlands, and I'm a certified diversity executive where I support different companies with setting up their DEI strategy, DEI initiatives, so that they can run, faster with bite-sized strategy for diversity, equity, and inclusion. But also, one of the things that I found out during the lockdown, during the training, and so many other things, right? What you don't see is you see that I'm a Black woman. You don't see how tall I am, but I'll decipher it. I'm 6 foot something, 1 meter 86. But also, another thing that you might not know is I'm neurodivergent. So I do know of myself that have mild dyslexia, misophonia, and I'm somewhere on the spectrum of ADD. Hence, all the things that I'm doing, right? A lot of people have mentioned that you're doing a lot. Well, I blame my ADHD for that. What else can I share about myself? I love talking. For those of you who, I don't only talk on this platform, so Let's Humanize the Workplace. I do have another podcast called Cooking Back to Our Roots. For people who want to know more, Google it, Cooking Back to Our Roots. And I also have the podcast with Marjolein Vlug, the Global Inclusion in Practice. So enough about me. Today, I'm going to have a conversation with LaTonya Jackson, who is a leadership coach and a success strategist with experience as a strategic corporate education leader. And her superpower is seeing what others can't see, which has made her a thought leader, a subject matter expert on workplace culture. But she's not only equipped in asking the right question, right? She's also skilled in helping elevate answer and achieving results. And I know LaTonya from the coaching program that I did a few years ago. And recently, I noticed a post on her LinkedIn feed where she shared that she had written a book. The book is called The Layoff Lab, and I am truly excited about having this conversation with her because a lot is happening in the workplace. So, welcome, LaTonya.
Thank you, Vivian. So excited to be here. Hey, everyone. Happy Tuesday.
You can say Happy New Year, Happy February, Happy whatever, right? A whole year of Happy New Year. So I am excited and thrilled to have this conversation with you. But before we dive into this conversation, know that I am inviting everybody's watching, whether you're watching on Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook, please engage with us, right? You have our ears and our time to ask us questions or share your insights from this conversation. So I do invite you. Sometimes I will drop a comment on the screen so that you feel included as well. It's not only about the two of us, it's about also including you as well. And whatever question that you have regarding the layoff, when you ask it sooner than later, you might have your question answered by LaTonya or maybe by myself, right? So let me start with an image that is very relevant because last year around this time I did a live with Mary Jane Roy about what was happening in the tech domain where a lot of the companies were firing people. I know that it's not only the tech domain that is laying off people, but this is an example, right, for you to see what happened. So in the beginning of 2023, a lot of companies were laying off people, and it was a massacre. Really, I noticed on my feed a lot of people were helping others out, but also saying that they've been laid off. And for some people, it felt like a heartbreak, right? If you are in a relationship for so long where you have given yourself and also had a good relationship with your coworkers, but also with the organization, it feels like a heartbreak, especially when you have all these memorabilia there, and then the company says we are a family. Well, there are some conversations that families don't treat people like this, right? So I'm excited to have this conversation with LaTonya, but it's also important to put things in perspective and also important to support you if you are going through a situation in a layoff circle, or you have been laid off recently. Know that this session is especially for you, to support you. So be sure that you ask the relevant questions. LaTonya, let me start first with my question, the icebreaker, right? Why do we need to humanize the workplace?
Oh, that's such a good question. It's interesting because I used that language in my previous employer a lot when we talked about compliance related training, helping individuals. And so I think ultimately we want to prioritize employee well being. We
Mm-hmm.
want to ensure that those who are in the work environment are able to be productive. They're able to function the way that you want them to function, and that means having a total human present, right, in the work environment where they're not distracted with life's demands and different activities. You also want to cultivate a positive culture in that environment. And positive culture is predicated by having individuals in the workplace who are human, who aren't just acting, showing up, doing the job, leaving, right? That's more
Mm-hmm.
robotic in nature. You want individuals who show up as human beings who are able to be, do, and act in the manner that is authentic and true to who they are, and allows them to then bring the culture, bring themselves, their whole true selves into the environment. And then that then impacts the culture of that environment.
You are mentioning a very relevant and valid thing, that, in the past, there was this notion, or there was this false narrative being shared, that going to the workplace means that you only can share your happy face, and everything that is sad or everything that is negative cannot be disclosed or cannot be shared. And you are mentioning that we want people to be authentic. And being authentic also means that you show up as your true self. So if you're having let's say a meh day, then sometimes you're not smiling, right? We often to women get the comment like, you should smile more to get a raise, or you should do this more to get a raise. So I want to say something about that as well. And for today, before we dive into your book and the topic, I just want to also add another icebreaker. So who are the three most influential people in your life, and how have they impacted you?
That is a tough question.
Mhm, mhm,
There are a lot of people who are influential in my life today, but I went way back.
mhm.
Let's go in the way back machine, if you will. So my mom was the first person of influence in my life. She
Yeah.
was a single mom with two kids, and so she taught me the power of resilience and overcoming difficult situations.
Mhm,
The second person, she was actually my hairstylist. She was the first Black woman who really ran a business and ran it well. She was doing
mhm,
well, living well. She wasn't a broke business hairstylist. She knew how to navigate things, and she taught me a lot. I would help her behind the counter at different times, learning how to navigate appointments and scheduling and customer service, and different things of that nature. And she became like a big sister to me. And so that was the second person. I struggled with the third between my kids and Oprah. So I was
That's a
like, I don't know
big
which way we're
thing,
gonna
though.
go here, y'all. But I'm gonna go with Oprah for now.
Mhm.
My kids are gonna get a kick out of that. But I'm gonna go with Oprah because I remember my mom, my sister. We used to go down to Keesler Air Force Base down in Mississippi, and one day traveling back, because my sister had a lot of doctor's appointments down there, and we were traveling back from Keesler back up to Columbus, and she stopped. We made a stop to see Oprah's birthplace. And I
Mm,
remember thinking, like, Oprah, the lady that's on TV, right? She wasn't as big then as she is
mhm,
today, but I remember reading the little placard, and it did something in me. Literally looking at the house that they say she grew up in, and it was like down a few steps, and it was like a little shanty house, and just like seeing that she made it from this to this TV screen. It's possible for me. And so that moment is one that I remember and recall. And even though I've never physically met Oprah, it's the idea of that she could make it out of a place like Mississippi, which is where I happen
mhm.
to be from.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. And I hope that your kids won't take you for granted that you didn't tell them. So Please forgive your mom, kids.
Please. Thank you.
So, going to your book, right? What inspired you to write the Layoff Lab? So, the 7 strategies to navigate your layoff or career transition.
So I wrote the book because I've been laid off twice
Mm,
in my career. And during the time in 2020, it was my second layoff occurred March 11th of 2020. And yes, I remember the date. It was 2 days before the global pandemic. It was
wow.
just, you know, a really, it just felt really bad. It was just, it didn't feel like a good situation. And I remember looking for resources. I really felt horrible. I had given up my business to go to this particular employer at the time. And 10 months later, I was in a layoff situation right before
Mhm.
we, you know, we're all learning about this thing, this virus that was going on. And I kept looking for resources to help, right? Go do the research to find. And I found a lot of resources that were available to help leaders and employees who stayed in an organization, but I
Mhm.
didn't find anything that was going to help someone who had been laid off. And
Yeah.
so that predicated me writing the book.
Yeah. It's awesome. And also, what you said reminded me so much about the situation where Stripe, who two of the CEOs admitted it, I think beginning of January or the end of December 2022, where they said that they made a mistake. And because of that mistake, they had to let go of so many people. But due to the fact that they understand that so many people have been working remote, other people have moved themselves from country X to country Z, right? And
Mhm.
other people are depending on their job to have a healthcare benefit, right? So they made it sure that people who were laid off are still part of the alumni of Stripe alumni. They also made sure that they had a severance package so that it's not only for 1 month, but I think it was for 12 weeks. And for those who needed their job because of the healthcare benefits, they made sure that they are paid at least 6 months so that they can still use the healthcare benefits for 6 months. I know that being laid off, it's never good and it's never fun and it always hurts. But it reminds me so much about the quote from Maya Angelou, right? It's not what you say, it's not what you do, it's how you made other people feel. And this particular instance that you see people being laid off and not being taken care or not being offered webinars or training so that they can reskill themselves, they can retrain themselves, especially now with AI being booming, right? I'm not seeing the courses and trainings being provided for people so that they can re-skill themselves and can make themselves more valuable for the company. But yet again, they are being fired without any transition. And that part, that's about the Maya Angelou quote where you have to set your people up for success. No matter the situation, you have to set up your people for success. So the fact that you were laid off and you had to search for all those resources, that's in in 2020, 2024, this should not be the case. This should not be the case. So thank you for sharing that. And when it comes to you talk about the 7 strategies. Can you mention a highlight of each strategy?
Yes. So the 7 strategies, I like alliterations for those who are
Mm-hmm.
watching. So they all start with the letter M, and please don't be
Mm-hmm.
offended by one of the M's if you happen to disagree with the term. All right. So the first M is mindset. So what are you
Mm-hmm.
doing when negative, limiting thoughts enter your mind, right? Because when a
Mm-hmm.
layoff occurs, there's a lot of thoughts that happen,
Yeah.
and they're not always positive. And we'll get into that a little bit later. The second one is money. What is
Mm-hmm.
your money management plan once the severance runs out, right? Because some companies give 12 weeks, some companies give 4, some companies give 2,
None.
right? You know, or none. Yeah.
Yeah.
I dare say none, but and so really, what's your money management plan? And if you didn't have a plan and you were just, used to that salary paycheck, that can be very alarming and disheartening in
Mm-hmm.
the journey. The third is movement. I found it was so important to get up and move my body. So how will you intentionally maintain movement and action or activity every single day, right?
Because
We're
the movement part relates to you not going to the office anymore. Is that the part where you need to mimic that, that movement still? Okay, I get you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're used to getting up and getting
Yeah.
dressed and,
Yeah.
even if you work remote in a virtual
Yeah.
setting, you're used to a certain cadence. Well, when you don't have that, it's easy to
Yeah.
default back into some behaviors that may not serve you well.
Yeah.
Uh, the fourth one is marriage, which is all about relationships. This is the one I was like, yeah. But what action are you taking to maintain connectivity with others? It's not just
Mhm.
about a marriage relationship with a spouse. Remember
Mhm.
that if you were in the office, especially prior to the pandemic, most of us were accustomed to going into an environment where we interacted with people every day. If
Mhm.
you're now sitting at home and it's just you, isolation can easily begin to set in. So you want to, again,
Yeah.
how are you going to maintain connectivity? Uh, me, this is the fifth one, meaning you. How will you practice self-care during the transition?
Mhm. Yeah.
Because it's easy to just be like, okay, I'm just going to grind and hustle and do all of the things that I can do, right? To make money, to bring in income dependent upon your situation. Or it's easy to be like, I'm going to travel, I'm going to do it. But how are you going to maintain self-care? And then your time, minutes, is how will you plan or allocate your time every day? And then the last one is measurement, which is how will you define success for yourself?
Yeah. I love everything that you said. And there's one part that I want to dive into, and that's the part of me. Where does grieving fall? Is grieving part of the me part? So some people, when you are being laid off or you are transitioning from your old career to a new career, right? I
Mhm.
believe that you have to mourn that old relationship, because if you don't mourn, then you will take that old baggage that isn't serving you. You will bring it to your new environment, and sometimes that can bring up some friction or some red flag. So, where do you feel the part of mourning or grieving falls in?
Oh, I love that. You brought another M. I should have had that in
Hmm.
there.
Yeah.
Morning, right? But it falls in really throughout the process. As soon as that
Hmm.
layoff happens, I liken it to a grieving process. It is a
Yeah.
separation, especially if you spent any length of time at that organization.
Hmm.
You go through all five stages of the grieving process, as I recall them in the book. So depression, or sorry,
Yeah.
denial is the first one. Like, did this really just happen to me? And
Hmm.
then
Exactly.
anger, right? Like then it's the anger, like I hope they burn, whatever you might say. uh, I'm
I'll
just
say
saying.
it. I hope they burn, because there are no, no, no. I mean, I recently shared a post about what happened to me when I was pregnant with Orlando. And let's say that I don't wish ill upon, those former managers that hurt me, but I do want to make them aware that they really caused a scar within me that is so impactful that they don't realize. So I don't want them to burn. I want their mindset to burn.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think that's a key, right? It's because there are some people though that I've interacted with who've been laid off, and they'll see a T-shirt or they'll see,
Mm.
the
Yeah,
company logo, and they will just
yeah,
have all kinds of feelings about it.
yeah,
And I used to, right, before, like as I was writing this, I had to think about how do I want to navigate that, and that's an important part of the journey. Is if you're still being triggered when you see the logo, if you're like, I'm
mhm,
not shopping at that location ever again, or I'm not going to buy this
exactly,
or whatever, you want to cleanse yourself of that entity that you may have spent, then there's something that you need. There may be something that we need to work through, right? Because it's triggering you every
yeah.
time you interact with it.
And this also impacts those who are around you, right? Because
Mhm.
if you were working for, let's say, a company called X, right? I'm not referring to a certain bird. I'm just saying company X, where something happened where you have been laid off, and that narrative is also being shared at home. And then at home, the people in your home are also sharing that similar narrative, right? So now there is this negative stigma around your company brand. So that's why it's very important to set your former employees up for success, because you never know if they might boomerang back, right? You never know if they might come back, right? And you want them to leave with a positive feeling, no matter whether a breakup can be good. There are good break, not that I've experienced that, but a breakup can be good.
Yes, breakups can be good, and
Mm-hmm.
there's plenty of stories out there. I shared one on my LinkedIn profile recently of the gentleman who I cannot recall his name right now, but he, was a Navy SEAL. So this
Mm-hmm.
happens everywhere. It's not just but he got injured during
Yeah.
a battle, and he was essentially had to be let go because he could no longer perform the job that he was in,
Yeah.
and he ended up near homeless. And he talked about how he walks in a store and he's looking at this belt and it turns into this multi-million-dollar brand. And that's ultimately really the message that I wanted to send out around the Layoff Lab, is that
Mm-hmm.
you can shift from this grieving, difficult, stressful situation to one that is prosperous and healthy and abounding in joy and love and peace and all of the things that we want on the other side. But there's work that has to be done in order to get there.
Yeah, it's really about turning your lemons into a fancy drink or lemonade for those who are not drinking, right? And also seeing a different side, that it's not the end of your world when you are being laid off. Sometimes it can feel like that because
Mhm.
some people really identify with their work, but then again, you are so valuable. And the moment that you retrain and reskill yourself, that's the moment that you can show other people your value and maybe end up becoming your own business owner, right?
Yeah, and I think it's you touched on something that I love that you're talking about, is it's not just about showing other people your value. You got to value yourself
Yeah.
first. And I
Yeah.
think that that's the part that that people start to miss, is
Mm-hmm.
all of their identity, all of their value, all of their purpose was in that role, in that job.
Mm-hmm.
And my aim with this is, like, whether you were laid off or not, you should not have your value, identity, and purpose inside of an organization, inside of a position,
Mm-hmm.
inside that thing that you do, unless you're doing it for yourself. You really
Exactly.
want to and I was a workaholic, all of my time, all of it. So part of what I'm sharing in there is really a lot of lessons from my own experience of, I'm giving myself over to this organization. I'm staying up late, I'm getting up early, all of those different things. But somewhere in there, I lost me. And that's
Mm-hmm.
why the
Yeah,
me was so
and you are
important.
replaceable. You are replaceable. To put it simple, when you are
Every day.
gone or you are sick, know that an organization has a backup plan, and that is to replace you as soon as possible. So what are you doing for yourself to add value to yourself, to your career, to your brand, right?
Yeah, spend the time investing in you as opposed to investing in an organization that
Yeah.
literally tomorrow could say, nope, we've decided. I mean, and as a contractor, let's talk about, I mean, that can happen as well. Hey, we
Yeah.
want to hire you to do this thing. Now, hopefully you have a really well-written contract, but if it has a
Mm-hmm.
lot of fluidity in it, the same
Yeah.
thing applies. They could be like, well, we've decided to bring all of that work in-house, and you could find
Mm-hmm.
yourself not with an income or source of income that you were planning for. So it really is about you building you so that you can go out and serve the world in the way that you choose to serve them, as an
True.
employee, as a contractor, as a business owner, entrepreneur. And that all starts with you valuing yourself and the identity and purpose that you for which you've been created.
Yeah, and I totally get that. I mean, this conversation, it's not about bashing the organization. I want the organizations or those in charge, whether it's the coworkers, whether it's the manager, whether it's somebody else from a different department, what can you do to support those that have been fired, right? I've seen a trend on LinkedIn from time to time where managers, former managers, or former coworkers are empowering those who are laid off. Like, if you need any references, if you need
Mhm.
any network, let me know. So use that, make use of LinkedIn for that, right? Use that network, because you never know who your former colleague may know to help you win at the new company, right?
Yeah, it's never burn a bridge. It's that
Yeah.
concept of, don't eat alone, never burn a bridge, all of those.
It
uh,
goes both ways. It
yes,
goes both ways.
it
It
goes
goes
both ways.
goes both ways, because
Yes.
I've seen managers, I've seen organizations burning bridges with employees, and you never know where they might end up. It
Hmm.
might be so that you might be losing a huge contract because of the way that you treated that former employee as well. So it goes
Right.
both ways. Yeah.
It does.
So let's go back to the script, right? Because I have a lot of questions, but you're sharing a lot, and I'm just like, oh, I need to talk about this as well. And I want to bring back, gonna want to go back to the stigma, right? So how does the Layoff Lab address the stigma associated with being laid off? Because it feels when you are being laid off, and I'm gonna share it from my perspective, right? It can feel like somebody's breaking that relation up with you, and it feels like you're not worthy anymore, you're not valuable anymore. You get what I'm saying?
I do. Yeah, the way I would say it is like I can just share my story, right? I
Mm-hmm.
literally was laying on my floor after the second layoff in my kitchen. My husband
Yeah.
had taken the kids out, and I was crying just inconsolably. And because all I could think of was I failed again, right?
Mm.
At least because that
Yeah.
was my second layoff, right? Why does this keep happening to me, et cetera, et cetera. And the first time it happened, I actually was sort of aware that the company had been laying,
Something was coming. Yeah.
things are changing, and wasn't I was okay staying or not staying, and I sort of was forced to just make a decision: do I want to stay or do I want to go?
Mm-hmm.
There were people who didn't get that decision. I was
Yeah.
fortunate to get the decision to leave and take the severance package. The
Mm-hmm.
second one was just complete, utter gut wrenching. I don't know, like, what are people going to think? Am I going to be rehirable, after this? And so I think what the Layoff Lab does is says, hey, first of all, you're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
Many people, you just saw the statistics,
Yeah.
or saw some numbers, and that's just from the tech industry. There are
Mm-hmm.
other industries out there who are laying people off. We're just not
Yeah.
hearing about it as much, right?
Yeah.
And the numbers are staggering. But what you'll find is, I actually had a gentleman uh, who I met. He's a chief HR officer at an organization. Met him through a mutual colleague in my network, and he had been laid off. And we were talking, and I said, well, hey, this, and I just dropped a little like, I just hope you choose to do what you love, right? Because
Mm.
if you choose to do what you love, what I found is, no matter what happened, I get the stress and the strain financially. He's a male, so providing for his family. We just kind of talked through some things. But at the end, all I could think of was, I just hope you do what you love, because everything he kept trying to go for, it wasn't what he loved. And you know what? He got the job doing what he loved. It took a little bit longer, but he is so happy. I reached out. So I'm open to work right now. I reached out to him and said, hey, I'm on the market. I'm looking for opportunities. And he was like, absolutely, because he remembers what it feels like. And so
Mm-hmm.
addressing the stigma, the Layoff Lab allows the opportunity for people to know you're not alone, and that there are others who've had this experience, recruiters to executive level. We've all, many of us nowadays, if you look at those numbers, have had to be in that role. And as a result of that, we know how to help you. We know, like, hey, your resume is not showing well. Here are some things you need to do. What did you do during that gap time? And so helping you in the Layoff Lab, I offer some recommendations on things that you can begin to do to take action so that your gap, Vivian actually talked about it, is how are you going to reskill yourself during this time? How are are you going to leverage a LinkedIn Learning? Are you going to take classes on Udemy or Coursera or any of those other platforms that are out there, that are available for a low investment on the front end, to be able to add skill sets for jobs that you actually want and would love to do? That is the goal of what we want to have happen. And that's what the Layoff Lab offers you.
I had to bring up the awesome card because you were dropping it and dropping it and dropping it, and I'm just like, wow, there's so much in there where sometimes there is a saying, right? When another door closes, another door opens, right? And sometimes we have to see a layoff. It may sound weird and you're going through a storm or that, but sometimes the layoff can be a blessing in disguise.
It
Why
can.
didn't you talk about the guy who was being fired and then he became a millionaire or got an idea to do some things? So
Mm-hmm.
try to see the things, the other things in the valuable things of what can you do, because your job is your job, but it's not your 100% your identity, right? Your job is your job. It's not 100% your identity. When no, let me turn this around. What do you feel like I need to ask you?
What do you need to ask me?
Yeah.
Well,
What's one question that I must ask you before we close?
so the one question I think that you should ask me is, have I ever
Hmm.
had to lay someone off?
Sorry, have I ever what?
Have I ever had to lay someone off?
Mm.
Hmm.
Well.
And I have.
Hmm.
It is because I think I like to bring perspective, right?
Yeah.
Being laid off is one experience, right? But think about the person on the other side of that
Yeah.
table. And
Yeah.
having been that person, it was 2 weeks before Christmas.
Hmm.
I
Oh,
literally was told that the person had to go. I
wow.
didn't get any. I had done everything I could do within my power to try to help
Hmm.
train the individual, get them up to speed. But the fact of the matter was, the work that they were doing was closely related to some high level leaders in the organization. And
Yeah.
while they reported to me, I wasn't actually overseeing their work. Right? It's one of
Hmm.
those kind of situations. And at the end of the day, I get a notification they're not cutting the mustard. They got to go.
Yeah.
And then I had to do this call and lay this
Yeah.
person off 2 weeks before Christmas, which I thought was the most horrible thing in the world.
It
And
is.
I could not articulate fully the why. I couldn't
Hmm.
articulate fully the what. And
Hmm.
knowing that, and by the way, I had just hired this person probably 90 days before, right? So they were within that window of, probationary period, all of those things. But it was the most gut wrenching because, again, I had been laid off twice. I know what it feels like. It was the most gut wrenching thing I could have ever done. And I couldn't do anything. There's a lot of legal things that, in my position that I was in, there were things I was coached on how to present the information. So
Yeah.
it's not just about how you feel. Consider, and I know in the moment you're not going to be able to, but when
Hmm.
you get to the place that you can, I want you to think about, if it was your boss that you've worked alongside for 7 years, it was not an easy conversation for them. And if
Yeah.
it was your boss who you worked alongside even for 3 months, it's not an easy conversation for them. It was. So consider that in how you show up, and recognizing that it may not actually be the individual's choice in the decision that's been made. They are
True,
simply.
but I also wanna, while you were sharing that, I also want to mention two things, right? Because in this case, I don't know what the negotiation was or what the end goal was, but when you are starting a new job, ask this question: what does success like sorry, what does success look for you like at the end of the 3 months, right? What are the minimum criteria that you must succeed to be able to, to extend it, right? This is a question that you yourself must know so that you can manage the expectation, but also the other person, you are giving the other person the opportunity to share their expectation about you, because sometimes we do this expectation dance where not everybody is verbal or not everybody is disclosing things on the expectations on paper. And then yet you're thinking that you're doing a good job, but somebody else is thinking you're doing a bad job. We have this situation where we don't talk about the expectation. So to prevent the expectation dance, ask this. And also, if somebody's not asking, provide the expectation that you have as a manager that you want this to be done by the end of this trimester, right? So that this person knows that they have to succeed or they have to at least reach tick a few boxes to reach that particular goal. And on the other hand, when you are made redundant, right, think about questions that you can ask the company, right? How can they support you in the meantime, right? If there isn't a severance package, maybe there is an internal training budget that you can use in the meantime while you don't have a job. So find out ways or strategies that you can have a conversation with so that the company is still investing in you even though you're not an employee. LaTonya, what do you have to add regarding that?
Yeah, I agree with both of those. I love to have the expectations conversation when I'm hiring
Mm-hmm.
and bringing on a new employee to my team. And, I share my rules of engagement. I
Mm-hmm.
share my,
Yeah.
and I ask that individual to share what are their rules of engagement. How do
Yeah.
you like to receive feedback and information.
Yeah.
Because to your point, everybody's different. I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm a direct shooter when it comes to giving the feedback, but I do not
Mhm.
like to receive it that way. And so I have to share that with people. It's like, just because I give it to you this way does not mean that it is acceptable for you to give it back to me that way.
Yeah.
And so people, and they laugh, right? But it
Yeah.
starts to create that relationship, to your point, in our communication, right? And it's like, and I like things written down. I like bullet points. Again, I'm very verbose. I like details. So helping them
Mhm.
understand, when you're giving me information, I need details. When I give
Yeah.
it back to you, I'm going to give you a summary, right? Those are the types of things that the expectations around, hey, how do you like to manage time? I'm like, I am not
Yeah.
a micromanager. It's one of the things I actually hate,
Mhm.
because I've been micromanaged before and I didn't like it. But I said, if I'm ever micromanaging you, it's because we're not meeting the goal. We're not meeting the
Yeah.
mustard. And so you will
Yeah.
already know that if you start to feel that from me, it's probably because something's not right and we need to sit down and figure it out. So it's extremely important that you have the expectations conversations and do the
Yeah.
expectations dance. I like that. I'm gonna add that to my vernacular. Um, the second thing is,
Mhm.
um, you were talking about, oh, I've just lost it. It'll come back to me here in a second. But just around the idea of, in general, about just
The second thing was asking the company, even though you are fired, there are
yes,
still budgets, opportunities, or maybe that you can follow courses on their behalf so that they can still invest in you.
thank you. It was
Yeah.
about becoming a contractor for the company. And
Yeah.
in
Mm.
some cases, if you're asking the question, it's like, hey, they just eliminated a whole bunch of work. The work
Mhm.
didn't change, right? That's the part that I
Mm.
hope organizations realize. Like the level, if you had that many people doing the work just to keep things moving, even if they
Mhm.
weren't operating at full capacity, that level of work still needs to be done. And
Yeah.
they're gonna, while people are getting onboarded and up to speed, there's an opportunity. Is like, can I be a contractor for you for 90 days to help with the
Mhm.
transition? And that could be a way for you to bring in income. So that's something that I want to offer everyone is, don't look at it as like negotiate. That layoff
Yeah.
conversation is a negotiation opportunity. Can I get more than 4 weeks of a severance? Given and give them the reasons why. Now, if you've been a poor performer, don't ask any questions. Just take that package and walk away. But if you have been performing well, and you ask questions like, what led to this decision, it's a time for you to get more information. So that, and I know it's not easy because I talk about that in the book. There's so many emotions happening in that moment, especially if it's your first experience.
Mhm.
You're
Yeah.
reacting, because we as human beings, we react emotionally first and then we respond logically. So you're
Mhm.
reacting to everything. But when you get a clear head, go ask questions. Don't just sign that document and walk away. No,
Yeah.
ask questions. Read it very, very, very carefully.
Or
Have an attorney.
even include somebody for with a legal
Yes,
background,
I
right,
was
to
about to
read
say,
your
have an attorney
contract.
review it. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So important, because there are things like, especially if you're in a different state than the company, there may be different legal. I spoke to an attorney on both of those layoffs that I had, and I said, in one situation, they were like, yeah, so help me understand, because I was going to be a contractor for them. They're like, I need to understand what you're going to be doing as a contractor. And I was like, why? Help me understand why you need to understand that. Right? It's just because some companies will try to get away with laying someone off so they don't have to
Mhm.
pay for the benefits. And that
Yeah.
is not acceptable. So there's a lot of little things related to this process that can be beneficial to you if you're willing to walk through the emotional reaction, get to the place of logical response, and then actually ask the questions before you sign the paperwork. You've
Yeah.
got time. Even if you feel like you don't, there's some laws in place how many days before you can actually receive the benefits anyway. So at least take the time so that you're getting answers to questions before you move forward.
And also, if you need to release some of the emotions, right? You can do kickboxing, you can bungee jump, which I don't recommend. But if you need to let go of that energy, or you can go to, how do you say, Disney? What is it?
Roller coaster.
The roller coaster, if you want to let go of that emotion. But also there is this axe throwing that you can do, right? So find what helps you to regulate those emotions, and then when you are done with those emotions, or the emotions are not at peak level, it will be helpful for you to engage that conversation and have that. But you have to debrief, you have to have that conversation with somebody else before you You have that conversation with active emotions that are hurting you instead of helping you.
Yes. I love axe throwing, by the way. Even if you can't go axe throwing, I know that's
Am
scary.
I am I am I giving myself away by telling, okay, am I giving myself away by telling that axe throwing is away? I mean, I mentioned kickboxing, right? Whatever you need to release those emotions, whatever you need to process those emotions. So my thing is that when I hear bad news or I have to deliver bad news, I don't do that at the same day. I need a moment to let it marinate and find my way of handing over the message without that many emotions.
Yes. I agreed. You got to have
Yeah,
some time between
yeah,
notification, and if you have a family with children, of course,
yeah.
your partner, you want to let them know, alert them, and then you may just need some time. It
Mm-hmm.
may be go to a hotel, or
Yeah.
take that trip you've been wanting. That's a couple of hours away, and have the
Mm-hmm.
time so that you can allow yourself to recover from all of that, process it out. I call that processing. I need to process, and my husband and my kids
Yeah.
understand that. I need to
Mm-hmm.
process something. Let me have this time. And then when I come back, I'm better for it. I'm able to be
Yeah.
more present. And so I offer that to those who are watching as
Yeah.
well.
Or let it marinate, right? Sometimes a good meat or a good barbecue needs a full day, maybe sometimes 2 days to
Yeah.
let that juice sink in and give you a proper meal. So with that, I've reached my final question. What is your wish for 2030 to humanize the workplace and layoffs?
Hmm. Given the influx of layoffs that I keep seeing, my wish is that
Mm-hmm.
we don't see them. I want companies to really, I'm a strategist, right? So
Mm-hmm.
when I look at layoffs and then I watch a company turn around and open up 500 jobs and I go, could
Mm,
of these people that you just laid off fulfill those roles.
exactly.
So what I would love to see a company do is before you lay off is really do a skills assessment of the talent you have
Mm-hmm.
in your organization. If
Yeah.
their name is on the layout list, you should be looking at their skill set. You should be assessing, can they do this? Okay, actually this is not their strength. Their strength is over here. And before and you already know what positions you're going to be posting, look and see if you can marry people up with new opportunities. If
Yeah,
it's less
but
money,
it goes both ways though, because I don't want people to think that it's upon the organization or only the manager
no.
to look at your skills, right? These are questions that you can ask now. Is there a training that you can follow, or is there an assessment that you can do to find out what skills you have? Maybe you'll be surprised with the extra skills that you are already doing, because all too often times we do stuff and we normalize it. Well, we find it very normal or very not necessary because somebody's saying that you're doing that so well, and you think, yeah, but this is a standard thing for me. No, when somebody gives you that compliment, embrace it, and maybe that's a new skill that you need to add into your toolbox.
Add it to your toolbox, take
Yeah,
advantage while you're in the company.
yeah,
My favorite thing was going to like my individual development plan or your development plan.
mm-hmm.
It's important that you are
Yeah,
saying, looking at the trends, looking at the strategy reports of the organization and identifying in the strategy, what are the skills going to be needed for that future job, for that future outlook
what
in the
you are saying is so valid, and in Europe, I don't know what it is in the US, but in Europe, given the fact that there is a talent lack resources, that a lot of companies are looking for people, but then again, when it comes to the L&D budget, there's so much money laying there, nobody's touching it, and nobody's alerting people, nobody's saying anything. And here we are, we want our talent to win, we want companies to win. We want to be top of mind, but we are not training our people to be resilient for the future.
yeah. And
Train
that
your people to be resilient for the future.
and make sure that as the person in the seat that hey, what is the training budget allocation for me? Because
Yes.
there is a budget,
Yeah.
right? That's how that
Mm-hmm.
budget gets created.
Yeah.
Most companies will assign, a dollar value per employee of up
Mm-hmm.
to, let's call it $2,000 in my example. Well, that
Yeah.
$2,000 is set aside for you to go get trained and skilled in things that you want to be trained and skilled in. And if
Yeah.
you don't take advantage of it, then that's kind of on you. That's what the development plan is for. It's for you to say, I want to go to this program or I want to take this course. Now, again, you got to, there's certain criteria. Like I said, I want to put my manager hat on. There's certain criteria that, I would require of my employees to be able for me to, because before I go make the ask, because I still have to
Mhm.
ask, even though it's in the budget, there could be
Yeah.
other things going on that I'm not aware of as a manager and a
Mhm.
leader. So I still have to go ask and advocate on your behalf. Make it
Yeah.
easy for me to advocate for you. Make it
Yeah.
easy for me as a leader to say, this person needs to go to this because I think they're going to be ready for the next level in the next 6 to 12 months. Make it easy for that conversation, but also make it
Mhm.
easy for yourself, because the company that you're in can train you for your next opportunity outside of that organization. And you'll already have the certificate or the skills, and you can use that as leverage to go apply for bigger and better. We want you to grow. At least I do.
I want to for the two people that comment within 2 days and need a convince my manager letter, hit me up. Only two people. I will craft something for you and help you so that you can convince your manager with that. Only two people. So the two people that comment on this live within 2 days, it's
Yes.
only a 48-hour commitment that I'm making. And if you comment on it, I will give you an example for you to convince your manager, because it seems like it's very secretive, but I want to make sure that I set you up for success. For success, so two people can sign up and let me know. So comment on my LinkedIn, or comment no, comment on my LinkedIn, because that's the message box that I have active, and reach out. If I can give you an example, reach out.
I'm going to match Vivian's offer. We out here, we'll do it. Let's match it. So go to
Yes.
my LinkedIn and
Yeah.
comment. And the first two people who comment, I will match her offer and
Yeah.
help you with your letter to convince your leaders on how to move.
Awesome, awesome. Tag us so that we can see it as well. Awesome. LaTonya, you're making me do stuff that I'm just like, what am I doing? But no, I do believe that from time to time we need to open our space, and you never know. I hope that the people are reaching out to us, that we are helping you. But also what I would like to ask you is to pay it forward.
Yes.
Not pay me, pay it forward in whatever way, because you never know who you might help. You never know who might needs it. So I want you to pay it forward. Thank you, LaTonya, for having this conversation. It was amazing. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on your show. Let's go out and humanize the workplace, because we are the humans in the workplace who should be humanizing the workplace. I love it.
Ooh, I'm gonna use that catchphrase.
I had to give you
Thank you
something.
so much.
Thank
Everybody, until the next time, I think the next live will be around International Women's Day. And until then, goodbye.